Okay, let's continue then. So this is what we are looking for. So we are looking for users, we are looking for users nodes, and there will be an Express application, there will be MySQL database, and there will be a React application. Okay, so let's start with this. To start with this, I'll be using 3 workspaces, maybe one for React, one for MySQL, one for the database there. So let's start with the database first. I don't have a MySQL, hold on, I think I have stopped or have kind of exited from that. So probably just a second, do I have that running here? I don't know, because earlier today I cleared everything. So run, okay, one sec. I already have that. I don't want to write every single thing again. So probably I might go back and hold on. Servers, no, not that. Or maybe I can directly get this from Docker. Now what is a Docker and other stuff we'll be seeing later today, after the break. So don't worry about that. I'll be sharing everything with you, but not right now. I just need the MySQL database. I don't want to install anything on my machine directly. So that's what we are going for, MySQL here. Okay. Now how does it work? We'll explain everything later. So this is going to be MySQL 5.7 I'm using, and this is the root password I'll be setting for my MySQL database. So it's going to start running the MySQL on my machine. Okay, pulling MySQL, wonderful. So if I look at the Docker container ls, Docker container run, or Docker container run, blah blah blah. I'll change this name to MySQL, and we need to add one more parameter inside it. It's going to be itd -p3306. I was having everything, and earlier today I deleted that for some reason. But anyways, let's see if we can. Oh, hold on. Seems like I modified few things for you. That's the reason. It's kind of giving me an error. For some time, I'll be removing those changes, and I'll show you that later. So we'll be seeing all of this stuff later today. Do not worry about that. And you don't have to worry about Docker command right now. You just have to worry about the MySQL and other stuff there. Okay. So let's see. Okay, here we are. So it seems like it started. Let me run this application now, MySQL. It's going to find that image from this, I believe. So Docker image ls. It's going to be like pull MySQL :5.7. Can it be pulling it? No, there is nothing. Let's go for MySQL then. Let's see whatever the latest one that we will be using. No option. Let's use this one and see if we can. Wonderful. That's great. So let me run this and start the container. Okay. Now for you, this is important. So when I say exec -it, it's like the MySQL and the bash is what I'm going to go for. Starting from this, we'll be kind of having exactly same thing that you might be doing it. So how do you start MySQL, guys? Can someone tell me? By using something like, yes, MySQL -u -root. I'm using a root right now. And if I say -p, it will ask me to enter the password. My password is root. So I have got the root user created, and I can see that the MySQL is running successfully on my machine. Do I have the database here? Of course not. I mean, this is the first time we are doing it, so I don't think we are having anything right now. It's the fresh machine. It's a fresh MySQL instance. Now I want to start with the simple database. Now to do this, let us create a new directory in our new directory for SDM. This is going to be like day 7. Okay, here we are. This is going to be like the classwork. Sorry. And right inside this classwork, I'll be creating one database schema. So you can easily copy and paste the stuff on your machine. Okay. So this is like db.sql, and here we'll be creating that schema for you so that you'll be able to get this thing on your machine. So first thing first, I want to create a database. So I can say create database notes_db. That's my database. Use notes_db. Sorry. Next, I want to create a new table. So create table. The table name could be a user, and inside this, I will be starting with the user with primary key auto increment. every user is going to have a name. So I would say the first name, which is going to be like varchar, let's say 255. It's too much, but still it's all right. So this is going to be like last name, this is going to be like password, and this is the last one, that's an email. Okay, so here we are, and it seems like my user table is ready. Again, it's like create table. Which table should I go for? It's a notes or note, better. I generally go for singular form. If you want to go for plural, it's all right. So ID, primary key, again it's going to be like auto increment, and right inside this I want to say like which user is kind of creating that note. So user ID would be an integer, the note title will be a kind of varchar, or you can also go for a text as well. 255 is more than sufficient, and the details of that note. Okay, so again it's going to be varchar and say 1024. It's like a little bit bigger, that's it. So now let's go back, execute these commands one by one so that we can see if the things are working fine or not. So this is where we are. Let's use this notes database and let's create the first user table. Wonderful, there is a right syntax. I'm sorry, it seems like ID primary key, yes, it's integer, who will not, yeah. How will it know which kind of the field that it is looking for? So user table got created, and hopefully the note table will also get created. So again, show table, and probably I can see both note and user are there. Okay, so now we are kind of done with creating the database. Are you all with me?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Now let's continue further. Let me go back, add one more workspace, and right inside this we'll be creating our Express application. Okay, let's understand this now. Okay, again going back to slash volume slash my data slash sunbeam slash sdm. This is like day 7. In that there is a classroom, and then I'll be creating a new directory called as backend, or you can also call it as a server, whatever. I'm going to go with the server, and right inside this probably we'll start with installing all the packages that I need in this particular application. So first thing first is the yarn express. I'm going to be using yarn. Which one that you are using, yarn or npm? Okay, I'm using yarn. So you may say npm init. I'm using the command yarn add. Yarn is faster than npm. Try to switch from npm to yarn and you will see the performance gain. Okay, so it's like yarn add. The first thing that I would need is the express. Without express I cannot provide the server. Then I would need the mysql2, which is used for connecting to the database. Then I would need a crypto.js for encrypting the password. I told you there is a CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability. In that, confidentiality can be implemented by using this encryption mechanism provided by crypto.js. The next one, I'm going to use something called as a Morgan. This is for generally used as logging package, which is going to help you like to understand what's currently happening right now. Another one is going to be like CORS. This will allow me to expose my application for my front end. If you do not enable the CORS, you will be able to get an error. You will be getting an error there. Have you used the CORS last time?
Yes.
Already. Wonderful. I think that's more than sufficient. Whatever we need, we can add that later. Okay, it will take a second or two, and probably it will be ready for me to start with this. Wonderful. So here we are. Seems like all the packages now be installed. Now let's go back and start creating a server.js. Here we are. Okay, so we'll be starting with very simple Express application. So it's going to be like const express, which is going to be equals to require. This is going to be like express. Again, I'm going to start with the Morgan, which is used for logging. Then we'll be using the CORS, which is again going to be like require CORS, and I think we'll start with these 4. Okay. Now, first thing first, let's create a new application which is going to be like Express. Let's go and say use CORS. That's the first one. Sorry, CORS, and let's enable it for all. Maybe I can say apply middlewares. All of them that we need here. We need to also use something like an express.json. Probably you might be using that earlier, So probably this is the JSON which is going to give me the body sent by my client. Okay. I think that's all right, and then we can start listening on a port, so app.listen, and what do I need? I need something like 400. That's the port that I'm going to listen on, port number 4000, again 0.0.0.0. That's a callback where we can say server started successfully. So server started successfully on port number 4000. That's it, a very simple server here. Again, before I forget, I'm going to say app.use and say Morgan. Morgan is used for understanding like what's happening right now. So maybe I can say combined. Combined is the format in which the Morgan will try to display what's currently being accepted by your application and what that application is returning back to the client. So here we are. Let me see if the application is running. It is running successfully. Wonderful. Instead of using Node, have you used Nodemon before? Yes. Wonderful. So let me use Nodemon server.js. So I don't have to keep on restarting my application after adding the new things there. That's a reason why we are doing it. Are you all getting it? Yes, sir. Okay. So now I think our base server is ready. Let's add two routes, for one for user, the other one for the nodes. So here we are. Let me create a new directory called as routes. Right inside this there'll be user.js, and right inside this there'll be node.js. Very simple. In my user.js, let's continue further and say this is going to be like express. Sorry, it's going to require. This is going to be again express const router, which is going to be express.router, and then all you have to do here is router.post. This is going to be like sign up, and right inside this is the request, this is the response, and here you will write the next piece of code, which will be doing it later. This is going to be like sign up, this is going to be like sign in. Both of them are needed here. Okay, and before I forget, again module.exports. What do I need to export? The router. That's it. Let me bring it in, put that in nodes, and right inside this node it's going to be like post. I want to get that, so get that nodes. If I want to modify something, let's say put, which is the node ID here, and this is going to be like delete, which is again which node that you want to delete. That's an idea of it. So basic structure I'm kind of creating here by using those placeholders there. Now let me add both of them right inside my server by adding kind of routes there. So I can say add required routes. Okay, here we are. Const user route or user router. We can say require. Where is it? It's in the routes directory with the name user. Do the same thing for node and say this is going to be like node, and then you can say the app.use for user. I want to apply everything under that user router. Same thing goes here. I can say node and say node router. Done. Okay, so all the routes now been added to my application here. Don't give me that look again. You already have seen this before. Okay, now the next thing is I want to continue with database integration. So I'll be creating one db.js where we will be connecting with our database and get our queries executed. So here we are. Maybe I can say MySQL, which is going to be equals to require MySQL2, and this is where we are going to use a concept called as a pool. This is like the connection pool that we'll be using in order to provide the production environment interface. I mean, you can create a connection to the database and get your query executed, but when you start doing it with single connection, probably when multiple users start connecting your same database, either all of them will get locked or maybe your application would simply crash because of too many connections open with the database. And it's not a good idea to use a connection in the production environment. If you're doing it locally, it's all right, but when you want to put this on server, on the production server, it's not acceptable to go with the connection based mechanism. So go for connection pool. Now to understand this concept, you may go for searching with npm mysql2, and right inside the documentation of this mysql2, these guys already have explained like what is the pool mechanism, how do we configure it, and so on and so forth. So probably if you just search for pool using connection pool, so this is where we can start configuring the stuff. For now, I can directly copy and paste it just to save our time. And it's nothing but like which host it is running on, what's the username, what's the password. In my case, the password is also root. The root username is also root. The database, I forgot. What is the database, guys? It was notes db or node db, I don't know, maybe it's notes db. Let's copy and paste it here. Wait for connection, that is true. Maximum connection limit, maximum 10 connections are allowed at the same time. Idle time would be 10 seconds, I would say. Idle timeout, it's like 60,000 means 60 seconds. Queue limit and all of that, we'll keep them default. Don't want to change anything right now. Again, module, don't forget that it's like module dot exports, and this is going to be like pool. So maybe I can say I want to expose that pool from here. Now this pool will be used for executing all the queries that you want to execute. Okay, here we are. Probably I'm going to go back to my user and start importing this and start doing the stuff. Okay, check this out. So maybe I can say const db, which is going to be equals to required /db, and right inside this I'm expecting my client to provide one, it's like the username. So probably I can say the first name, then the last name, then the last name, then the password, and then the email. These are 4 basic things which are needed for a user to register, which we'll be getting from request.body. Okay, now second part is very simple. All we have to say here is this is my query or this is my statement, which will be something like insert into user. I want to insert first name, last name, email, and the password, then again values, it's like the first question mark for, it's a placeholder for the first name, second name or the last name, email, and the password. Okay, this is my statement. Now I want to get that db.pool, the one which we have exported from that, call the method execute, or you can also call the method query. Both of them would do the similar stuff. So maybe I can use the query. I can say this is like statement I want to execute, and the parameters I want to pass like the first name, last name, email, and the password. So precisely all these question marks will be replaced with the values of those variables. So the first question mark will be replaced by first name, second question mark will be replaced by the last name, third question mark will be replaced with email, and the last question mark will be replaced with the password. Simple as that. The last one is the callback function, where you are going to get an error, and this is the result. Result is something which you are going to see whether new row has been inserted or not. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to say like if error, that means some error has occurred. Maybe I want to send a response saying response.send. I would say status is going to be equals to error, and what kind of error that I received here, maybe I can write it there and say this is going to be like the error. So in which case, if there is an error, my client would know there is some error, and what kind of error I have encountered here, I can send it from the response itself. Now the second one, if it is not error, that means we got the valid result, I want to simply send that result back to my client. So I would say response.send the status, which is going to be equals to success, and this is nothing but the data, which is nothing but my result. Now if you see here, I need to keep on doing this stuff for every single response that I want to send from my server. So every response would have a unique structure or the uniform structure. Every time we'll be sending 2 things. One is the status, it could be an error or it could be a success, and the second one, either error or data. So the client would understand if it is a success, client would get it from data, and if it is an error, client would get the error from the error queue. So I need to keep on doing it for every single status or every single API out there. So instead of me repeating this, I'll be creating a new module called as utils.js, and here maybe I can write a very simple function, create success response, and right inside this I would say this is the data or result, whatever you can say. So here I can say the status is success, and this is going to be the data, success, and this is going to be like the data. Similar to this, I will be creating one more. Let's say create error response, and this is not the data, this is the error. So there we will be sending an error to my client, and instead of saying success, I would say this is an error. Again, I'll be creating one more, and I can say simply a response here by sending error and the data. Now what's the meaning of it? You will see that later. So right now I would say if error means if the error is valid, return the function create error response by sending error. If not, then create a success response by sending the actual data. So this is where we are kind of creating the functions which we want to call from every other API responses. I don't know how to write the same code again and again. It's going to be like return only once. Do not forget to export all of them. It's like module.exports, which is going to be equals to the create error response, fine, create success response, and create simply a response. So I'm kind of going with the structure here, and this structure I'll be using throughout all my APIs. Going back to the user.js, now see, first import that. So it's going to be like import that, I mean import in the sense require that. So I can say require /utils, and whenever I want to create this response, instead of doing it like this, I would say utils.create error response and send the error. See, next time onwards, whenever you want to create error response, just call that method. Whenever you want to create a success response, call that success method. Like this one, for example, I'm going to go back here and say utils.create success response and pass the result. See how simple is that? So depending on what exactly the result that you are getting out of the execution of that query, you want to get your job done. Very simple and very straightforward. Are you all getting it?
Yes, sir.
Great. Now let's continue further with the next part, and that is a sign in. And again in sign in also we'll have to do something similar, email and password, and probably we can go back and say this is request.body. Okay, so before we go for implementing the whole stuff, I forgot to mention something. This password that we are entering is a kind of plain text. Anyone can read that, and you must have already done that before. You know, I don't want to, because I told you earlier as well, I want to keep the confidentiality here. When I say I want to keep the confidentiality, I'll be going with something called the crypto, which is going to be like import that crypto.js, and instead of directly going with this password, I'll be kind of encrypting that password here. So maybe I can say encrypted password, which is going to be equals to, I'm going to convert that to the string by saying crypto.js or crypto dot, you can use anything there. I'm going to use SHA-256. Last time we already have seen that. And then pass the password sent by my user, and use this encrypted password here instead of going for the actual plain text password. Do you understand what am I showing you here?
Yes.
This is the one. Okay, so here we have encrypted the password. That means when we want to check if the user exists, we'll have to first encrypt the password and then write the actual query. So the query or the statement would go like that. Select star from, not star actually, I want to get only the ID. Let's go for the first name and the last name. I don't want to get the password, so probably I want to go for select ID, first name, last name from user, where the email is going to be equals to this and password is going to be equals to this. This is my statement. How do I execute it? db.pool.query, and then we can say this is my statement. This is my statement that I want to execute by passing the parameters like email and the password. Okay, next it will be giving me either error or the list of users matching with the email and the password. Okay, so here we want to again check if error. I think we already have done that before. We have to say response.send by saying utils.create error response and the error. But if it is not error, I mean if it is success, or maybe the query got executed successfully, then I want to check if the user really exists. You know, this is an array. If it is an array and if the user exists, the length of that array would be equals to, or length of array would be greater than 0. So my criteria here, check if user exists, would be very simple. If users dot length is greater than 0, that means user exists. You know, if user exists, I want to get the user from the 0th index. There could be many users, but I want to get only the first user from here and say this is like users of 0. Alright, so here we are kind of saying the user is going to be like users of 0. That users is an array, so we are getting the value or an object from the 0th position, and then I want to send it back by saying response.send. What do you want to send? Again, utils.create success response, because that's a successful user, a successful you can say a successful user, or maybe you can say user with that email and password would exist, and we are sending it back. So this is like the user, I want to send it back. If users dot length is not greater than 0, means if it is equal to 0, which means user does not exist. So probably I can say response.send, and because user does not exist, I want to say create error response and put an error saying user does not exist, or you can say the invalid username or password, so on and so forth. So that's it. This is the way we can do it. I'm so sorry guys, it should be encrypted password and not the normal password, not the plain password. Are you all getting what am I writing here? Yes. Okay, let's see if it really works. How do you check that? You use the Postman, right? Okay, I may use the Postman, or maybe because I don't want to leave this Visual Studio Code, I'm going to go back to the Thunder client. So there is a plugin called the Thunder client which works exactly like the Postman, and this is a lightweight. It's really simple. It's lighter than Postman, so I would prefer this one. So I don't have to leave the Visual Studio Code environment. I can do everything from that Visual Studio Code itself. How do you install this extension? You go to the extensions tab, search for something called as a Thunder client, and this is the one that I'm using right now, Thunder client. So get it installed. When you install it, you will see one more tab right here. You click on that tab, and this would give you exactly the same thing that you can use in a Postman. First thing, I want to create a new request. Okay, so here we are. Let's create a new request. This is the post request, so send a post. Here we want to get that http:// and then say localhost:4000/user/signup. Okay, say Control S. This would save that request for the future use. I don't have to keep on typing the same thing again and again. Just save it. It will be saved right here on the left hand side. I'm going to go back to the body. This is the JSON content. You don't have to set that as a raw, change that content type to application JSON, because it has already simplified your life. You just put the data that you want to send it back, like the first name. I would say this is going to be like Amit. Let's say last name. Sorry, the last name could be something like Kulkarni. The username, or you can say the email, which in my case @test.com, blah blah blah, and then I would set the password, which is going to be something like a test. So it will be easy for me to enter the username and password. You all ready? Let me send this request, and boom, look at that. What do I get? I get status equals to success, affected rows equals to 1. That means one row must have been inserted. Now let's verify that. Going back here, checking that in my database by saying select star from user, and boom, look at that. This is the user that we have just created. Look at the password. Can you check the password? Can you tell me what password am I using? Now, I know you already have seen that, but by looking at this content, can you tell me what password am I using? This is called as confidentiality, and that's what the important stuff. You remember we used something called as a Morgan. See, the Morgan would give me what exactly happening right now. So this will give me an understanding. There is a client who has this is the client who has sent a request on this particular date from this particular IP address for post user/signup, and I send the response with status equals to 200, and you're probably knowing it. Status 200 means success. Okay, fine. So now it seems like my post request is really working. Let's create one more request, and we go for a post, and then we can say http:// localhost:4000 user/sign. Right inside the body, again we need to send only two things. It's like email, which is like amit@test.com, test.com, the password, which is going to be equals to test, and if I say send, boom, look at that. I got the actual ID, first name and the last name, which means this is the user that I am kind of logging with. If I change the password, if I send a wrong password, and if I send it, you see, it's telling me, hey, this is an error. And what's an error? The error is user does not exist. If you observe this, every time the response I'm getting, it contains only two keys. One, status, either having value error or success, and either error or data. If the status is error, you will get it as an error, and if the success and the status is equals to success, you will see that as a data. This will help you to get that response and parse it easily on the client side of it, on the React side of it. I hope you can understand that. Okay, so now like we are done with the sign up and sign in. Let's continue for the next part, and that is the notes part. Notes part is going to be very simple. But before that, I'm going to introduce, I don't know whether you have used it before, but I do not want anyone to use that ID equals to 1, because if I'm exposing my IDs, then probably hacker would understand what kind of pattern that you are using, and they could try guessing the user IDs and try stealing the information from your database, which I do not want to do that. And that's the reason I don't want to pass that ID, but ID would be necessary. For example, if I want to create a node for a user, I need to understand who the user is logged in. And that's the reason why we are going to take a different turn and probably will be using something called as JWT. Have you heard about that? If you have heard, well and good. If you haven't, let me introduce you this one here. This is called as jwt.io. This is where we are going to create the tokens, and the tokens will be sent to the client, and tokens are used for understanding who the user is logged in. So this is a JWT. You can see that it's like the web tokens are open industry standard RFC 7519 methods for representing the claims securely between two parties. A token in JWT would look like this. There are three parts: number 1, number 2, and number 3. So the first part contains the header, which algorithm is used for signing that token. The second one is the actual data that you are sending, and the third one is like the signature to be added, which is going to secure your verification or secure your token. Now this is where you are going to put the secret. The secret will work like a salt or the key, which I mentioned earlier, if you can recall. So yesterday we talked about symmetrical and asymmetrical keys. This is a kind of a symmetric key. Okay, let's understand how we can get this thing done here. To do that, we are going to use either you can say npm install or you can say yarn add, and the name of it's called as a JSON web token. This is where we are kind of adding the JSON web token. Okay, understand this now. Fine, so I have added that JSON web token. So let's try adding this content and see how do I create the token for my user. Understand this. I'm in the user.js. Let's first use that JWT, which is going to be equals to require. This is like JSON web token. It's very simple, it's very straightforward. Check this. Instead of sending the user ID as is, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a payload. So this is like a payload. Payload means the information that you want to put inside your token. So I can call this as payload, which is going to be equals to the ID, which is going to be like the user's ID, the name of that user, which is going to be equals to user of first name and space user of the last name. So this is how we'll be adding this information right inside my token. So this is the payload that I'm creating. Now I would say create a token. So this token is like const token, which is going to be like JWT dot sign this token. This is the token, and for token signing I would need a secret. This secret should be very secret. That secret should not be shared with anyone. If you share the secret, anyone can modify the token in between, and that's the reason I'm going to keep it very secret. Now how do you keep that secret? Again, outside this I'll be creating one more file called as config.js, and here we'll be kind of putting all the configurations. So maybe I can say const config, which is going to be equals to the secret, and I'll make that hard to guess as well, so maybe I can go back here and I can say secret generation or secret generator. There are many such websites where you can generate the secrets, so it should be complex enough that no one would even try to guess, so that's an intention behind it. You can also say 1 2 3 4, but it would be very simple for hacker to identify or to guess that value 1 2 3 4. So I'm making something which is very hard to guess. So coming back here, I'm going to say again module.exports. This is going to be like config. That's it. So this config will be used here while giving the giving that secret. So maybe I can say const config, which is going to be equals to require, which is like /config, and probably I can say hold on, I don't want to say exports here because it would say kind of config.config. So better for me to do it like this. Module.export equals to config. So this would make my life a little bit simpler by saying token, I can say config.secret. That is the one that I'm using. So this would create the token which I want to send it from here. So this is the token. Put that token as is, and if you really want, you can put that name as well. but never will you send that ID directly. This is the token that I want to send it back to my client. Now let us understand what happens when I change these things. Again, let's run the server and let us see what am I going to get back. So I'm going to directly jump into the sign in response. This was my older response. Now I'll go back and say send. Something is not working. The token is before initialized. So sorry. Let me see. I'm so stupid. My bad, guys. This is not the token. This is the payload. I want to sign in, and then it would create the token. Accidentally I wrote that token. So now it should be working fine. And boom, I got the token here. This token is something which you are going to use from your client to identify who you are. So this token contains the signed in user's ID. This user contains the signed in user name. So I'll be getting this token every time from the client and understand who the user is logged in. I'll show you that in the second part. But right now, understand this is the token which will identify who you are. How do I know like who am I here? I can copy that token, go back to that website, JSON web token, and put my token here, So this will tell me in my token, I have ID equals to 1 and I have name equals to Amit Kulkarni, which means this is the token which I want to use on my all the other calls to make them protected. Now, what does this mean? I'll show you that example right there. Watch this and understand this. To understand this, let me close everything, go back to the node.js, and let's start creating the post part here. Okay, now there are a couple of things here, understand that. So what I'm trying to say here is I'm going to go back and get the contents of that node, like the title and the details from request.body. Okay, and then I want to create the statement like what I was doing earlier. So this is like the statement. In this case, it would be like insert into node. What do you want to insert? You want to insert the title, you want to insert the details, and you want to also insert the user ID. Again, the values would be question mark, question mark, question mark. Okay, now if I go for that DB, for this we'll have to again import that DB by saying required, sorry, it's going to be like required /DB. We also would need that utils as well. So let's get that utils, and then probably I can start executing that query by saying db.pool.query. This is the statement that I want to execute. The first part is the title. Let's put it here. So title. The second part is the details. Let's put it here. But now the question here is, how do I get the user ID? You getting my point, guys? How do I get the user ID? I may get that from my body saying this is the user ID and pass that user ID here, which means while sending the request, I can put this title, details and user ID in the request body and I can send it. But can you see that if I'm trying to get that user ID like this, probably any hacker can put the user ID randomly and create a random node, right? And that's the reason I don't want anyone to play with our IDs directly. So if it is not the user ID, I'm going to get it from request body. So where should I get it from? I should be getting it from that token that I generated last time. So when the user logs in, user will get this token, and every time the user is going to use my API, he or she has to send that token along with it. Now how do you do it? Yes, sir. So can you please switch off the fan? Yeah. So how do we send it or how do we get it done is what I'm trying to show you here. Understand that. First thing first, I'm going to go back to my server.js. In my server.js, before I do anything, probably right here, I can say add a middleware to check the token. So if the token is available, only then I'll be letting user to call the API. If the token is not available, user will not be able to call the API. This is the standard behavior of the backend application. So understand this. To do this, first thing first, I'm going to go back and say const JSON web token, that's JWT, which is going to be equals to required JSON web token. I would need the config to get the key as well. So I can say config required./config. Okay, DB is not needed. So right now I'll be using app.use. You probably must have written a middleware before, which requires a request, then a response, and then a next. Next is the next method that you can call. So here I want to check which methods or which URLs the token should be applied. So I'm going to go back here and check if the request.url, because for sign in and sign up we cannot use that token. So if request.url, maybe I can say equals to, if it is going to be like /user/signup, or maybe I can say request.url, which is going to be equals to /user/signin. If both of them are the request user is sending, I do not want to get anything from that, simply call next. So maybe I can say the token is not required for sign up and sign in, because both of them will be kind of having no tokens, because those are the ones which are generating the tokens for me. If you ask the token from sign up and sign in, it will be a chicken and egg problem, because sign in is used for generating the token, and you cannot ask the user to send a token to call the sign in. So it will be chicken egg problem. So for them, I don't want to do anything, just simply continue further. And if it is not sign in or sign up, every time the token is going to be mandatory for me. So here I will try to get the token. So check if the token is available. How do you check that? You can check that by getting it from your so-called the headers. So maybe I can go back here. I can say the token, which is going to be equals to request.headers, of maybe I can send a token from my headers as a token. If token is not available, if not token, which means if the user has not sent the token, I'll be sending a response directly from here by saying response.send utils. Probably I can say utils. Did I use that utils? No, I'll have to hold on for a second. It's going to be like const the utils, which is going to be equals to require./utils. Okay, sorry, utils. So right here I can say utils dot create error response, and I can say missing token. So probably if the person is calling an API without sending a token, I don't want to continue further. Stop right there and ask user to send the token. This is like we are forcing user to send the token. How are you going to generate the token, by the way? By signing in, which means if I want to create a token, I'll have to sign in. And if I want to sign in, I'll have to have valid username and the password. Means valid username and password is a requirement for calling all of my APIs. All the other APIs where the token is needed are generally known as protected APIs. We'll see in a second. If the token is available, I want to get the payload back. The payload in my token is this. I want to get the user ID and username back from my token. To do this, I'll be going with try catch, because if we are getting any error while decoding my token, I'm going to get an error. I'm going to get an exception here, which means if the token is not valid, I'll be getting an error, in which case I'll be sending a error response and say invalid token, like that. Now if everything works well, I'll get the valid payload from it. So it's like const payload, which is going to be equals to jwt dot, it's going to be something called as a verify. This is the token, and this is like config dot secret, the same secret I've used for generating my token. Okay, so the token was generated by using this secret. I'm passing it back at the time of verification, and this verify is going to give me the payload that I added inside my token. Get the JWT token or JWT payload or JWT tokens payload. This payload, I want to put it back into my request by saying request dot user ID, which is going to be equals to payload of ID, because if you can recall, in my payload I'm having the ID and I'm having the name. So this is where I want to access that user ID in all my other APIs. I'm going to pass it to my request saying add the user details to the request, and the same request will be sent to all the other APIs, which means I'll be able to access both of them in all the other APIs there. So the username is going to be equals to payload. I'm so sorry guys, this is a key, it cannot be a ID like that. And the second one is like payload of name. These two, ID and name, you can see right there, ID and a name. Next, you are kind of done with that, so you continue further and call the next API. Whatever API that you are calling, it will be called from here. Okay, now watch what I'm trying to show you here. I'm going to go back to my note, and before I perform any of those operations, I want to simply go back and put this on console, saying console.log who the user is logged in. So I can say user's name is going to be equals to request.username. This is the key I added last time. And what is the user's ID of logged in user? I can put that as the user ID. Once it is done, I'll be sending that response, a dummy response back to my client just for now by saying utils.create success response. And there'll be nothing, just for an example I'm saying, or let's put an empty one. So this is a dummy response just to show you what happens if I do not pass the token and what happens when I pass the token. Okay, understand that. Going back to my Thunder client here, I'll be creating a new request. This is for HTTP again, ://localhost :4000/note, and this is the post method. Let's say I want to create a new note, so I need to send the title back. I would say this is like Amit-note-1, just to identify who the user creating that note here is, and then the details. It's like this is Amit's first note. Now watch what happened. I have not sent any kind of token here. So if I try to send this request, I'm going to get an error and it will force me, hey, you're not sending a token here. So I'm getting an error saying missing token, which means now I need to send a token. Now how do I send a token? To send a token, I'll have to go for sign in. If I want to go for sign in, I have to have the valid username and password, right? If I want to get the valid username and password, if I'm a database administrator, I can go back to the database and try to steal some user's credentials. But it's not possible for me to do it now because the password is encrypted. So only the user who has created that account will be able to validate himself or herself, That means if I'm a valid user, I can log in with my credentials, I'll get that token here, and this token, I want to pass it back to my API. But how do I pass it? If you look at my server.js, I'm expecting it to be sent via headers. So if I go back to the new request, click on the headers, here I can pass the token, and I can pass that token that I received from my sign-in API. If you send it, watch what happens. If you send it, I'll be getting a success response. And if I look at the console, look who the user is logged in. Who the user is logged in? Amit, and the user ID is equals to 1. Okay, let me show you something back. Going back to the sign up, and let's create another user. Let's create a completely different user. Whom should I create? Let's say there is a Rahul. I don't know who that person is, but just creating a random user, Rahul Joshi. So maybe I can say Rahul, and probably this person is now registering himself. I'm going to go back, sign in, and just log in on behalf of Rahul. And when I send, he will get his own token. Okay, watch what I'm trying to show you. Now, if Rahul is logging in, Rahul copies his token for now, and then probably he goes back and he sends his token and says send. Look on my console, I can see who the user is logged in. How are we doing it? It's very straightforward by looking at the code here. So if you look at the code, you can see that right inside my server.js, I'm kind of getting the token here. The token, I'm kind of verifying it back, or the secret that I passed here, I'm passing it to verify the token and get the payload, the information that I added inside that token. What did I add here? Probably if you look at the user.js, you can understand I have added two things. One is the ID and the second one is the name. And that's the reason I'm getting both of them back, like ID and the name, and putting them both inside my request. When you say you are calling an API, next API, you will be going back to the actual API, like the post, and here you can get that username and the user ID. So henceforth, you will not need to ask anyone to pass an ID. You can get that ID by using currently logged in users token, and that's what the standard behavior you can see in the real application. You all getting it, guys? Okay, I know it's difficult for you to digest it. If you do it once, probably you can understand that. Okay, I'll assume that you will repeat it yourself and probably you will get to know what exactly it is doing. Right now, just follow along and probably you will get it later. So right now, I think we were looking for that user ID and somehow I could get that user ID here, you know. So probably I can go back and execute my execute my query and say this is the error and again this is the result. Whatever that result I'll be getting, I'll be passing back here and say it's not the success response anymore. I'll be saying create a response by passing error and the result. See, I'm kind of doing this a simple job here. Whatever data that I'm getting or whatever the result I'm getting, I'm passing it back to the create response. Create response is already checking. If it is an error, then pass the error response, or if it is not error, pass the success response. Now, before I say anything, you can get this like we have created a new node here. If the new node has been created, getting it back is a very simple stuff. Literally copy and paste it, and then you can change this from select star from node, and all we have to say here is where the user ID, which is going to be equals to question mark. So here we are. I can get this thing done, and probably whatever the nodes that I have created, I'll be getting them back. Simple and straightforward. Now the the third part is even simpler. All we have to do here is again copy and paste. I'll be getting that ID of that node that I want to update. So maybe I can say const, this is an ID, and then probably I can say request.params. Here we want to go back and say update node, where I can say the title, which is going to be equals to question mark, and let's say password, not password, details, which is going to be equals to question mark. Okay, so update these two. What am I saying? Update node, set these two where and why and here. It seems like anyways, where the ID is going to be equals to the question mark. So IDs I'm going to get it from here, title and details I'll be getting from the body, and all of them will be adding here to get that put API done. Simple as that. And finally, if you go for the delete, we are kind of going for exactly similar stuff, except instead of saying update, I would say delete from node, where ID is going to be equals to this. We are almost done. So here we are, and probably we are done with all our APIs there. I don't know whether you can understand this or not, but we are already done. You see, we are already done. See, I'm going to go back here and say http:// localhost :4000. Wait for a minute. And when I send this, I'll be getting the missing token again. So probably if I go back, sign in, I'm signing with my user account because I have created one node last time. I'll be copying this again and sending it back to the get API's header with the key token, and then I can send it back. Oh, I'm getting 500. Seems like there is an error while executing the query. User ID is not defined. Absolutely. It seems like I forgot to copy one line of code, which is like this. So if I go back in my get API, this is not the actual user ID. This is request.user ID. That's why it was not working. Anyways, so hopefully things are looking good here. Where is that? Here it is. This is the get API. When I say send missing token, that's right. This is where we want to go back to the token. And probably I can copy this and paste it back and see if I'm going to get my nodes here. So this is the token. I'm going to pass it back. I'm not getting anything right now because who am I right now? Or do I have anything added? Not yet. So we'll have to add a note here first. So I'm going to go back to the post. This is my note. I've not added anything yet. So let's create one note and say this is my first note. Create it. Oh, sorry. I forgot to add this one here as well. I added in the get, but forgot to add that in the post. Hold up. copy and a paste. Here we are. So this is where we are kind of getting one node added. The node has been added. If I go back and send it, I'll get my node back. So I, as an Amit, logged in, created my node, I got my nodes back. Now I'm going to log in with the Rahul's account and see if I'm going to get all the nodes that I have created earlier. So this is Rahul's token. I'm going to copy this, put it back in that get API and send it, and you will see, sorry, forgot to this one. So now you can see that the Rahul user is not getting any nodes back just because Rahul user has not added anything in the database. Okay. Now wait a second for a wait a second. Okay. There's a